Hello, Shoyan here. I'm a carpenter based in Japan. Today, I'm building a staircase. I will start by measuring and rough cutting the wood. The wood is pine, as usual. It'll be a simple 14-step straight staircase with stringers. This staircase is made of pine wood. I've uploaded 4 to 5 staircase videos, and they are all made of pine wood. I would like to use a variety of wood species, but the pine wood is the standard in my area. These timbers are only available at the sawmill. There were offcuts of flat long beams that were 60 to 66mm thick, and they were milled 48mm thick. Originally, the risers were thicker, but the sawmill wanted to make 3 risers from a 60mm board. As a result, risers became thinner and thinner, and now they are 21mm to 18mm thick.
200等の195でした場合、これやったら入るんやな。これを入れていかなあかんから。
で、こっから段。
この3があるっちゅうことは1台に。こういうことやねん。
Since the staircase will have 14 steps, it requires long stringers. Like last time, there are 2 knots in the stringer. My goal is to hide them as much as possible, while cutting the stringer as short as possible. Long stringers will be difficult to pass through the planer and jointer. If I don't measure carefully before cutting the timber, there may not be enough room for a step. I will carefully measure the lengths for 14 steps. I always use an old circular saw for rough cutting. The brand is Makita. I've had it for over 40 years, and it's never broken. Modern circular saws only last for 5 to 6 years. I have finished measuring and cutting the timber. I now run them through the planer and jointer. I remove the fence first whenever I push the timber through the jointer. The threads are 24cm wide and do not stick out from the jointer. However, if the timber moves slightly and the jointer is not applied to the edge, it will be playing at an angle. That's why I removed the fence to ensure that the blade contacts the timber when pushing with my hands. Afterward, I plane it on the planer. We set the camera to show inside the planer. It's unusual to see it from this angle. When running along timber through the jointer, I set a roller at the end and push it carefully. Finally, the time has come. The Super Surfacer has reached the end of its life. It is hard to fix because the belt is worn down, and even the edge guides are broken, limp, and saggy. This will be barely the last word for the Super Surfacer. I transport the timbers as soon as possible after processing. Pinewood is prone to warping and it's hard to plane, so wind and sun exposure must be avoided. I don't even want to prepare on the weekend and leave them for a day. I planed the timber with a Super Surfacer, but it was not wide enough. Since I changed the timber side to plane the entire width, half the edge is prone to tear out. So I hand planed all the boards first to finish the process. If I do this 3 days after processing, it can warp and become more difficult. When hand planed, even if they slightly warp, they will be flat after fitting into the groove.
こ
I plane the front edge of the threads to be at a right angle to the top and bottom. On the back side, where it joins the riser, I plane the bottom diagonally to come to the inner side, about 1mm to 2mm. As a result, it will snugly join the riser. Then I measure the height of the stairs and the thread's top location before drawing the mark. The dimensions are written on the plan, but I also measure the lengths on site. The stair height is divided into 14 steps. Once the first thread's front position is set, I divide 13 by the length from there to the top. This will determine the thread's location and the stair's height. It's a small triangle. Based on the slope of this triangle, I mark the location of 14 steps.
何気なくこう書くけど、205。今ここへ上出てくるとやべえ。もう一寸下がったらいけるな。ここまで来たらな。上がるっちゅうことや。
When I mark stringers, I draw a precise mark on the first one. Then I pause them up and mark the second one based on the marks on the first one. This produces a stringer with the same slope on both the right and left sides, even if the level is off by 1mm to 2mm. The level will be the same on both sides without twisting. Before cutting the stringers, I set the timber at the actual slope. Then I measure the length of the first thread's front and the 14th thread's front.
195。上段がマッチの下に当てる。はい。上段がマッチ。これな。これが今入っとるんや。これにトンと当てたんや。角下にな。1段目で前の面がここ。まあちったわな。ほんでまあ。
OK
範囲かな。
I cut the stringers top and bottom. There are two basic stringer shapes. The first method cuts the top like a horn shape and hooks it to the header joist. And the second method cuts the top horizontally to level the second floor. The one with the horn hook appears sturdier, but the sturdiness is the same. After cutting the top and bottom of the stringers, I temporarily install them. Ideally, they should fit perfectly on the first try, but on average, it takes 3 attempts to get them to fit perfectly. This time, they fitted on the second try. It's great if it fits on the second try. Now that I've confirmed that the stringers are accurate, I start grooving them. Before grooving, I mark the edges with a cutter. It's like marking a line using a scriber. To make the threads fit snugly, the grooves will be cut 2mm thinner than the threads. Now, I groove the stringer using a 21mm blade groove cutter. The most accurate way is to use a gradient ruler, but it's difficult to use. Because I'm lazy, I always groove the stringer slightly inside the lines freehand. Now, I chisel off the grooves. I made the threads 2mm thicker. In modern staircases, the stringers do not need to be cut into grooves like this because the timber is pre-cut. The groove is cut diagonally inward about 10 to 12mm from the stringer's top surface. To fill the gap and make the exposed parts attached, the threads will be wedged at the bottom. Many carpenters make stairs that way, even if they cut a groove like this. In the old days, we used dovetails every other step or so. In retrospect, it was a lot of work. Dovetails cannot be wedged once they become loose. I notch the stringer top for the wallboard. Because the top 13th thread can't be joined to the stringer in the usual way, I use the Yariokuri technique, where I insert it first and pull it back. Now that the stringers are grooved, I finish them. While only half of the stringer needs to be plain, it isn't easy. I can easily cut my hand if I am careless. As soon as I have finished 2 stringers, I will install them. I groove the thread where it joins the riser. This should have been done first. Ultimately, the thread stop location is determined by dividing the number of steps. If I had done it before, I could have grooved the riser and finished it simultaneously. I was in too much of a hurry to finish the timbers. As usual, I use the hardwood side facing up for the threads. I am often asked why I do this in the comments. In the case of pine, the grain will not tear out even if the sapwood side is facing up. In this case, the staircase will be all white if sapwood side are used. On the other hand, it'll be reddish if the hardwood side is used. I think finishing the wood with hardwood adds twice or even 3 times as much value as finishing it with sapwood. That is why I use the sapwood side facing up. Next, I cut a groove in each thread to prevent slipping. This blade is rounded. I widely chamfer the corners since the thread is 2mm thicker than the groove. There are 3 reasons for doing this. First, the wood won't chip. Second, by chamfering the inner side diagonally, there is less resistance while maintaining exposed surfaces attached. Third, when the thread is chamfered, the groove won't overlap even if it's not at a right angle. The last process is called kigoroshi. I gently tap the wood's edge to compress it so the 6 threads can be easily inserted into the groove. After that, I will water the staircase so the wood expands. Now, I install the first step. I always struggle with the first and the top threads when installing a staircase. This time, I install the first thread, then we put in the riser from the bottom and set it back in place. This method can be used because there are 2 people. If I was alone, I would have to use the yari-okuri technique, which involves fully inserting the riser first and pulling it back. Once this first riser is in place, the stringers can be secured. I secure the stringer to the column's surface. Since one side is insulated and airtight, 2 furring strips protrude. I make room for them and secure the stringer with long nails. As I had suspected, I have to hit the threads many times to install them. I install the top 13 steps using the yari-okuri technique. I have to apply hard tension to install this board diagonally because it's short and thick. However, the stairs bottom is hidden, so I can install it this way.
Go.
平らな台を送るわ。
I firmly screw the threads towards the front. Next, I generously water the area where I gently tap the thread's edge. Compressed wood expands as soon as water is applied. In addition to wetting both sides, I also wipe the thread surface with a wet towel. That way, the color will be uneven. I installed the risers. The risers were completely white on both hardwood and sapwood sides. If both sides are pitch white, I use the sapwood side facing the front because there is no difference in color and the grain comes out well. As the risers are only secured with screws, I use a lot of them. Screwing the riser is another struggle in the first step, since it's low. The first step riser can be secured from both sides and the top. The floorboard is already installed on the bottom, so the riser is just placed on it. In this case, I secure the riser and the floor using a furring strip with glue. A straight cedar furring strip is ideal since it attaches well with glue. This is today's main dish, the 14-step riser. A flat long beam of 60mm thick by 360mm wide is installed in this section. Since it's a large piece of wood, I drill holes using a drill bit to screw the riser from the back. I measure and mark the exact location of the thread on the back and drill the holes. Then I screw the riser from the back. To secure the top, I use a square plug. That way, there will be no gaps for a long time. Finally, I glue around the riser to avoid cracking. Screws on both sides shouldn't be cracked. I also glue between the threads and the risers. Next, I glue the middle of the grain. Some boards start to crack from the grain center. To prevent cracks, I glue them firmly. Now, I have finished installing the 14-step pine staircase with stringers. It is very valuable. I hope it lasts for a long time. It's very beautiful. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.